Hey, in today's video I'm going to be showing you how I make coffee on the Aeropress. A lot of you liked the previous video that I did on the Aeropress and I'm really glad that you enjoyed it. So this time we're going deeper into the Aeropress, the kind of coffee that it can make and how I like to brew with the Aeropress. This video is going to be a bit more raw and in-depth. Well, that was a bit of an understatement. I didn't realise just how long my rant was going to go on for, and to be honest, it is just so boring and so poorly executed. So I highly encourage that you use the timestamp down below and skip straight to the recipe. But I'm going to leave it in for the psychopaths watching this video who don't mind sitting through 15 minutes of this and skip to the recipe, you have been warned. Let's talk about how I arrived at this recipe. So to begin testing, I broke the Aeropress down into its different components. So temperature, ratio, agitation time, grind size, and steep time. And what I did was I tested each variable multiple times to see what I liked, what I disliked, and what produced the best cup. For agitation time and grind size, I couldn't individually test those variables because they're both closely linked. They kind of go hand in hand. If you have a coarse grind size, you probably need to do a fair amount of agitation to get a brew that's worth drinking. Whereas if you've got a finer grind size, you don't need as much agitation. So beginning with temperature and using a recipe that I know works from previous experience, a really good recipe. It's 20 grams of fairly fine ground coffee in, 90 grams of water, 5-second agitation, and standard orientation, not inverted, just standard with the filter and cap on. And it's a fairly quick brew, so you're not letting it steep for very long, like 5-10 seconds at the most, which is about the amount of time that it takes you to put the plunger on and start pushing. And basically I worked through the temperatures from 100 Celsius all the way down to 80 Celsius, which is kind of the temperature that I found coffee started to become a little bit undrinkable and under-extracted. So working through those different temperatures, starting at 100 Celsius. 100 Celsius was slightly bitter, very sweet, and there was a hint of like fruits and florals using this recipe. 95 Celsius, less burnt, more florals and acidity. 90 Celsius, the brew's starting to taste really good. A lot more acidity, a lot more florals and sweetness, and almost no bitterness. Then 85 Celsius, that was where I found the sweet spot to be for me. It was really well balanced, really rounded, smooth, balance of sweetness and acidity, and you could really taste and smell the florals. And then 80 Celsius, that's when we started entering under-extracted territory, so I stopped testing temperature from there. Moving on to ratio, starting from a pretty tight ratio of 1:5 and working our way down the ratio with 1:7, 1:9 and 1:11, keeping the temperature the same at 85 Celsius. 1:5 ratio was bold, viscous, akin to a slightly diluted espresso, kind of like a short lungo. 1 to 7 was weaker in flavour compared to an Americano, but stronger than a V60, and it had some good punch to it, and good acidity, which I liked. 1 to 9 ratio was still a bit more like an Americano than it was a V60, but it was lighter than the 1 to 7 and was starting to enter the V60 filter territory. And then 1 to 11, which was, as far as I went with ratio testing, was the best for me, the best balance of thickness and tea-like body. It wasn't too much of either, and that was really what I was going for. That's what I like. It was super smooth. It still had punch and acidity. It didn't taste diluted or weak, but it still had that strength of a thicker brew like an Americano. And then agitation time and grind size, I thought I would test them both together because they're pretty closely linked. If you think you've got a coarse grind size, you're going to need to do a lot more agitation to pull the solubles out of it compared to a finer grind size where you'd need less agitation. So it sounded like it made sense to test them both together and try different combinations of grind size and agitation time to see which one worked best for this recipe. I'm using the Wilfer Savart to grind my coffee. So I'm using the Wilfer Savart to grind my coffee, and it's got a Aeropress setting or grind size. I did a bit more research into what grind size it actually is, and it turns out that it's a lot finer than what's recommended for Aeropress. I'll pop a conversion into microns on the screen, what the Aeropress grind size on that grinder is. But using that Aeropress grind size as a reference point, I ground coarser steps and finer steps to see which one worked best. So for my first test for agitation time and grind size, I used a grind 2 steps coarser than the reference point and 10 seconds of vigorous back and forth agitation with the paddle that comes with the Aeropress. And as a result of that test, I found that the brew was very smooth, very similar in flavour to the 1 to 11 brew, but with a much finer grind size. So the agitation went up, and as a result, we extracted more, so we didn't need to go as fine. And it just had better acidity, and it was a lot cleaner, a lot crisper. So as a result of that, I decided to take the 85 Celsius that I was using for that test and bump it up to 90C to see what would happen, if it would improve the clarity and acidity of the brew. And as a result, it was pretty much the same as the previous brew, just slightly more acidity, which was really good. No bitter flavours or anything like that. And as a result of that, I decided to increase the temperature up to 95 Celsius to see what would happen. And we got even more acidity out of that. So I concluded that going any higher there would be no benefit to it. It would probably over extract the brew. So I stopped there and decided to test some other different configurations. So for my next test, I ground at reference point using a 5-second agitation and 1 to 9 brew ratio and a 95C temperature water. And it was good, but it was going in the wrong direction. It was viscous and bitter. Moving on to a different combination of agitation time and grind size, I decided to do a 2 steps finer than the reference point grind size. I used 5 seconds of agitation, a 1 to 9, and then 95 Celsius. And I found that it was moreish, it tasted slightly bitter. And as a result of that test, I decided that I would change the brew ratio down to a 1 to 9 instead of a 1 to 11. And the resulting brew was something that was really bright in acidity, had really good sweetness, really nice florals, zero bitterness, but at the same time, it wasn't very moreish. I didn't want to drink it, so I stopped there and moved on to other variables. So trying a different combination of agitation time and grind size, I used a reference point grind, 5 seconds of agitation, 1 to 9 ratio, and 95 Celsius water. This was good, but it was moving slightly in the wrong direction. It was more bitter, it was more, it was thicker, and just wasn't right. So scrapped that, moved on to another combination of two steps finer than the reference point grind size, 5 seconds of agitation, 1 to 9 ratio, 95 Celsius water. And this brew was really moreish. I drank the entire cup. I really enjoyed it. Slightly bitter, lacking in acidity and sweetness and florals. So dropping the grind size down 1 step and doing a 10-second agitation with 1 to 9 ratio and 90 Celsius water. This was a lot less bitter and really close to what I wanted out of the Aeropress, the kind of coffee that I was looking for. But it could have been better, so I decided I'd go even further. I dropped the grind size down 2 steps, so 1 grind size coarser than the reference point grind, 15 seconds of agitation, 10-second steep, so an extra 10 seconds on top of the 10 seconds that we were doing before, and 1 to 9 ratio, 90 Celsius, and this brew was the best so far. So letting it steep for longer and using a slightly coarser grind size with more agitation, I found was producing the best flavors for what I was looking for. I decided I would push even further just to see what would happen, what else I can get out of this. This was a really good recipe, but I wanted to see what else there was. So keeping all variables the same and just increasing the temperature slightly to 95 Celsius, it didn't taste as good and it was slightly bitter. So this time keeping all variables the same and just increasing the amount of coffee and water that we put in. So whereas before I was using 18 grams, now using 22 grams with a respective 200 milliliters of water to keep that 1 to 9 ratio. This was really good, really good brew, better than the previous best brew. But again, could have been better. So I decided to reduce the temperature down to 85 Celsius because before, like way back, I found that 85C gave me more acidity, more fruitiness, sweetness, etc. I just decided that I'd try 85 Celsius, but also increase the steep time. So whereas before I was doing really quick brews, with like 10-20 seconds steep, I decided that I would extend this right out to about a minute with 10 to 15 seconds of agitation. And the resulting brew was hands down the best, like the best. Yeah, tasted really good, really much cleaner and sweeter than the previous brews, a lot more moreish than the previous brews. And so I decided that I would settle on this one. And that's how I got to this recipe. There was a lot of testing involved. If it sounded messy and kind of incoherent, it's because it was. I'm not by any means used to scientific testing, the scientific method or anything like that. I'm just trying to find out what tastes good, what tastes bad, and build a recipe using my knowledge from those tests. If you sat through all of that, then thank you so much. Enough talking, let's get on to the good bit, the recipe. Okay, so I've got my little sticky note here. So for this recipe, we're going to use 22 grams of coffee, 22 grams, there we go. And on our wheel for Savart, we're going to use a step coarser than the recommended Aeropress grind size. I'll put a conversion into microns on the screen so that you can convert from microns to your grinder. RDT. Oop, where did that go? Blind up. For our water, we're going to be using 85 degrees Celsius. Take your cup, carafe, whatever you'd like. Take the plunger out of the Aeropress, put a filter into the cap, place that into the Aeropress, coffee goes in, and just give it a little bit of a shake just to even out the bed. We're going to pour super aggressively, so we'll start the timer now and just pour up to 200 grams. Take our paddle and just stir it for 15 seconds. Let it sit for 45 seconds to a minute. Okay, so we're coming up to a minute now. I'll place our plunger on and we're going to gently push down. Once all of the water has sort of dripped through visibly, you're going to stop there. You're not going to push through the hiss. You don't want to compress the bed because you can get some over-extracted flavors in your brew. And that is my recipe so far. There's a lot of work to be done on this recipe, I feel. This recipe is by no means perfect. It's what I've found tastes best through my testing so far. There's still lots of testing to be done and lots of things that I want to try. And this is certainly not the last video I will be doing on this Aeropress recipe. So what I'm drinking at the moment, I wish I kept the box, but this is a very funky, very interesting coffee. This is a butter fermented coffee by a roasters called Dark Matter, and it tastes like a creme caramel or a creme brulee. It's so buttery and caramelly, it's insane. And that's all for this video. Please try this recipe. I'd love to hear your thoughts about my testing this recipe and just your thoughts in general. If you liked this video and want to see similar content in the future, like, subscribe, turn on notifications, give this video a thumbs up, and I will see you in the next one.